chugga-choo-choo, off we go. Hop aboard the Storytime Express. Oh, boys and girls, do you see that bear? Wow, can you guess what today's theme is? We're going to have adventures with bears today. And I want to thank my friend Evan for letting me use Cookie here. So we're going to talk about bears. I'm sure you guys have a teddy bear at home. You might want to go grab him, snuggle up, and join us on our adventures about bears today. All right, Cookie, let's get you down over here where you can hear the stories. And let's get right into our first story. It is called A Visitor for Bear by Bonnie Becker. No one ever came to Bear's house. It had always been that way, and Bear was quite sure he didn't like visitors. He even had a sign, "No visitors allowed." One morning, Bear heard a tap-tap-tapping on his front door. And when he opened the door, there was a mouse, small, gray, and bright-eyed. "No visitors allowed," Bear said, pointing to the sign. "Go away." He closed the door and went back to the business of making his breakfast. He set out 1 cup and 1 spoon, but then he opened the cupboard to get out a bowl. And there was Mouse, small, gray, and bright-eyed. "I told you to leave," cried Bear. "Perhaps we could just have a spot of tea," said the Mouse. "Out!" commanded the Bear. "Most sorry," said the Mouse. "I'll be going now." Bear showed him to the door and shut it firmly. Then he went back to the business of making his breakfast. But when he opened the bread drawer for 1 slice of bread, there was Mouse, small and gray and bright-eyed. There he is. "Unbelievable," rumbled the Bear. "Away with you, vamoose." "I do like a bit of cheese," said the Mouse. Bear pointed a rigid claw toward the door. "Yes, then, here I go," said the Mouse. "Farewell." And the Mouse whisked out the door. This time the Bear shut the door very firmly and locked it tight. He locked the windows, too, for good measure. Then, once again, he went back to the business of making his breakfast. But when he opened the fridge to get an egg, there was Mouse, small and gray and bright-eyed, of course. "Be gone!" roared the roared the Bear. "A crackling fire?" ventured the Mouse. "This is impossible, intolerable, insufferable!" cried Bear, shaking with anger and disbelief. "Terribly sorry," murmured the Mouse. "Now you see me, and now you don't. I'm gone." And then the Mouse looked very sorry indeed while he waited for Bear to unbolt the door and let him out again. This time, before he went back to the business of making his breakfast, Bear shut the door very, very, very firmly and locked it, boarded the window shut, stopped up the chimney, and even plugged the drain in the bathtub. Carefully, Bear set about the business of making his breakfast. He opened the cupboard. No Mouse. He opened the bread drawer. Nothing. He opened the fridge. Mouse-free. Yes, indeed. He lifted the lid to the tea kettle. And there was the Mouse, small and gray, and well, you know the rest. Bear fell to the floor and wept. "I give up," he blubbered. "You win. I'm undone." "So sorry," said the Mouse, "but perhaps I could have a bit of cheese and a cup of tea. Do you think we could unstopper the chimney and have a nice fire?" Bear blew his nose with a loud honk. "But then you must go," he sniffled. "No visitors allowed." "You have my word," said the Mouse. So Bear unshuttered and unboarded the windows, unlocked the door, unstoppered the chimney, and unplugged the drain. He brought out 2 plates of cheese and 2 teacups, and he made a crackling fire in the fireplace for the 2 sets of toes. The mouse warmed his feet and nibbled and sipped, and Bear did too. They sat for a long while. The clock in Bear's house ticked loudly. Bear cleared his throat. The mouse looked most attentive. No one had ever been attentive to Bear. "The fire is nice," Bear announced. "Lovely," said the mouse. No one has ever said that Bear's fires were lovely. "I can do a headstand," said Bear. "Impressive," exclaimed the mouse. Bear told a joke. The mouse laughed heartily. No one had ever laughed at Bear's jokes before. Bear began to think of another joke. The mouse set down his teacup. Bear quickly lifted up the teapot. "There's plenty more," he said. "So sorry," said the mouse. "Most kind of you, but I must be on my way." "Really, you needed to go," said the bear. "I'm off," said the mouse, springing up from his chair. "Wait!" cried the bear. But the mouse stepped out the door. "Toodaloo," said the mouse. "Don't go!" wailed the bear, throwing his body across the path. "But I gave you my word," said the mouse, pointing to the sign. "No visitors allowed." "Oh, that!" cried Bear, pulling down the sign and tearing it up. "That's for salesmen, not for friends." "Not for friends?" asked the mouse, small, gray, and bright-eyed. Bear nodded. The mouse's bright eyes glowed brighter, and Bear smiled. "Do you like 1 lump or 2?" said Bear most politely. "I like 2, said the mouse, and Bear agreed. Awesome little story about a visitor for Bear. Let's get right into our next story. We have another story about bears, and this one is called Bears Don't... Oh my goodness, that bear's still watching me. Oh, Bears Don't Read, by Emma Chichester Clark. Most days, George sat on a bench at the edge of the woods and stared out at the distant hills. He wondered about life. Oh, there's Bear. Oh, life is lovely, he thought, tra-la-la-la-la, and all that. But is this it, he wondered? Is this all there is? His brothers and sisters never wondered about anything. They were perfectly happy chatting, fishing, doing the usual bear things, and telling the same old stories over and over again. But George was bored. He didn't want to do the usual bear things anymore. He wanted other things. But what, he wondered. Then one day, as George was strolling through the forest, he found a book lying beneath a tree. Somebody must have lost it, he thought. How interesting. Inside were pictures of a bear just like him. And on the other pages, there were lots and lots of words. Each one, even the little tiny ones, is saying something, he thought. If only I knew what it was. And this bear is having an exciting life, not like mine, George sighed. But then he had a brilliant idea. He rushed home to tell the others. I'm going to town to find the owner of this book and to ask them to teach me to read, he said. You don't want to go there, said his brothers. They don't like bears in town. But I want to learn to read, said George. That's silly, said his sister. Bears don't read. Why can't you be happy just doing normal bear things? But George would not be put off. He waved goodbye and headed towards the long road into town with the book under his arm. George walked for a whole day and a whole night, stopping to rest on a grassy hill under the sparkling sky. And before he slept, he opened the book again and he gazed at the words. Already he felt that the world was a more interesting place. The next morning, George rose with the sun, and by midday he could see the town in the distance. He smiled. It looked lovely. There must be so many people who know how to read there, he thought. Lots of new stories they could tell me. But when he arrived, everyone was running. Some were even screaming. Wait, called George. He showed the book to a woman rushing by. Do you know whose this is, he asked. It's from the school, she shrieked, and pointed to the red building. Bear, bear, shouted somebody. Call the police. How peculiar, thought George as he walked towards the school. Inside the school, there was complete silence. Where was everybody? George peered over the desk. "Hello," he said, but there was nobody there. Suddenly, there was a shout. "Freeze! Hands above your head!" George was surrounded by policemen. "What's the matter?" he asked nervously. "You're a gigantic grizzly bear," shouted the chief of police. "That's the matter." They moved towards him, holding up their shields. "I don't want any trouble," said the chief. George didn't want any trouble either. It wasn't his fault that he was a gigantic great grizzly bear. He held the book tightly in his paw. Just then the doors burst open, and in walked a little girl named Clementine with her mother. "Hey," cried Clementine, "that's my book, and that's my bear in my book." "This is a dangerous animal," roared the chief. "Stand back." "He doesn't look dangerous to me," said Clementine. "No," said George, "I'm not that sort of bear at all. I was just hoping someone could teach me to read." "Silence!" roared the chief. But Clementine wasn't listening. "I'm learning to read," she said. "We could read together, couldn't we, Mom?" Clementine's mother looked at George. She could see he was perfectly nice, sort of kind of bear. "I don't see why not," she said. "So you're going to take the responsibility for this bear, will you, Madame?" asked the chief. "Certainly," said Clementine's mother, "and there's no need to shout." She held out her hand to George. "Very pleased to meet you," she said. "Delighted to meet you too," said George. George moved into the summer house at the end of Clementine's garden, and each day after school Clementine showed him everything she had learned. And it wasn't long before George knew all the letters of the alphabet. George didn't find reading easy at first, even though he tried hard. He often made mistakes, but luckily Clementine was a patient teacher. Sometimes the chief came to see how they were getting on. He brought a book of his favorite poetry to read aloud to George. "My love is like a red, red rose." Then one day Clementine said, "I bet you can read this whole book now all by yourself." And George opened it and began. "Once upon a time there was a large brown bear who found a book lying under a tree. He read the whole book all the way to the end." "Bravo," said Clementine. "We knew you could do it." And for George, that was just the beginning. All right, that was Bears Don't Read. Now, if you've enjoyed these two bear books, we have a theme kit at the library that you can learn more about bears and do some activities about bears. And there's that bear still watching me. All right, so go to the children's department, ask any of the children's workers there, and you can get this theme kit all about bears. Now, what I like about this kit is that the very first activity in here is a puzzle. So you open this up and you have Mama Bear, Papa Bear, Baby Bear, and you've got all these cute little things that you can dress up your bears with, okay? And you've got all these different little bear faces. Oh, there's Baby Bear, so sad. So you can dress these guys up. This is a really cute activity, and you can retell the story of the three little bears. So that's the very first thing you're going to find in this theme kit. And then we're going to have lots of books. We have Where's the Polar Bear? Corduroy. Everybody needs to know about Corduroy. He is a very popular bear, and the book that goes right along with the video. You have Goggles, the bear who dreamed of flying. And then we have this factual book by National Geographic all about bears. Hey, this guy looks like the one that's in my window. We have The First Bear. And then two other books. You have Rabbit and Bear Make a Wish, as well as Are You a Polar Bear? So if you are interested in bears, learning facts, as well as just reading other stories, come on down to the library, to the children's department, and grab one of these theme kits. You just check it out with your library card. It's as easy as that. All right, we have one more book for today's adventure, and it's called Let's Scare Bear. Ah! Maybe it should be the bear scaring me. I don't know. All right, so this is called Let's Scare Bear. I like this story. Manu cake! Sweet and chewy, it's such a treat to eat. Mouse loved Manu. Fox loved Manu, and Spider loved Manju, and Snake loved Manju too. They were all about to enjoy their Manju feast when... Can you guess what's going to happen? They heard a thump, thump, thump. What's making that thumping noise, boys and girls? Bear was passing by. Bear was the biggest, loudest, bravest, and strongest animal in the forest. Mouse spoke with a teeny tiny voice, and he wasn't brave or strong at all. "Let's scare Bear," Mouse squeaked out to his friends. "I'll go first," said Fox. Fox flashed his knife-sharp teeth at Bear. Rawr, look at that. Bear flashed his knife-sharp teeth back at Fox and laughed. Spider tried to trap Bear with a sticky web. Bear broke it with his powerful paw. "Help," said Spider. Snake wrapped her strong coils around Bear. But Bear burst right through. Little Mouse tried to say, "Boo!" but only a little tiny squeak came out. Bear just laughed again. Only one thing scares me," says Bear. The others waited breathlessly. "Manju cake," said Bear. "Manju cake?" asked the Mouse. Bear began to quiver and shiver and quake and shake, all at the thought of Manju cake. "Don't even mention it," cries Bear. Bear ran to his cave to hide. Mouse had an idea. Fox, Snake, and Spider had the same idea. They all rushed back to Mouse's house. And they returned with their Manju cakes, which they tossed and pitched and headed and volleyed into Bear's cave. Then they waited and waited and waited until... What's going to happen? Bear came out grinning and licking his lips. "It's scary how much I love Manju cake," said Bear. The Spider over here says, "No way." "Time to make more Manju. This time let's not scare Bear. Maybe we should share with Bear." And Bear says, "Thanks for coming." Pretty funny story here to end our day. Let's scare Bear. All right, Cookie, what did you think? Did you like our stories today? Here is Cookie. Everybody say hi to Cookie. Wow, we had a great time today on our Storytime Express where we learned all about bears. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Storytime Express. I hope you've enjoyed our adventure. Join me again next time when we have another adventure on the Storytime Express. Bye, everyone!